the questions around society, I think, are underplayed. You know, what kind of society do we want to live in which robotics and autonomous systems and learning systems are a part? You know, how do we want to share jobs out? How do we want to interact with autonomous systems? How do we want to interact with each other? And where are we willing to kind of reduce human interaction in favour of more automated systems? So I think these big questions about society are underplayed, and they're really current and they're really real. So I think that's one thing that could help shape this debate, was be a bit more focused on what we want and how we want to live our lives. So in order to answer those sorts of questions thoroughly, I think we need to be really broad about the spaces and the realms of life that robotics and autonomous systems affect what we do. I think questions around sort of robot companions, service robots for health and social care are really pertinent, because I think the questions are so easy to grasp. You know, would you like a robot looking after your grandmother? You know, that's really kind of an interesting question you can ask yourself. Similarly, questions around military applications are really clear and really pertinent, so they get a lot of focus too. But I think there are actually quite subtle areas where robotics is sort of creeping into the way we live that we don't look at so often. So, for example, retail systems that are driven by lots of data that can make decisions about what your purchasing decisions might be in the future, what you might be interested in. Auto-generated content for the web and for media, entertainment space, learning and so on. There's lots of systems which are data-driven, learning systems that could affect us in more sort of social and cultural ways, I think, that we're not necessarily thinking about. And those sorts of spaces are interesting because I think it's so easy to focus on robots as things that will be in your life, in the robot in the home, the autonomous car, but not sort of robots and autonomous systems as things that are blended within human systems, that are not sort of visible, but are kind of shaping the way we do things and the way we interact. So I think we need to think much more broadly about the realms of life in which robotics is operating and how it affects what we do. When we're clear on that, we can start thinking about what values are really at play. And I think you talked a lot about safety and risk to humans, and I think, you know, human harm is a real kind of key issue, and the sanctity of human life is really key. So we think about safety an awful lot, and that's really pertinent. But there are also kind of other sets of values. Values like freedom and control, making your own decision, driving your own car and doing it the way you want to. You know, do we care about that, and how much do we care about that, and how do we trade it off against safety? Questions about work and meaningful work. I mean, questions in industrial robotics much more affect when is it appropriate to give a job to a robot, when is it sort of appropriate to keep it within a human experience and skill set, and what's the value for humans of having that work and developing the skills to do that work. The value of sincere social interactions, values to do with privacy, values to do with being able to make an honest choice, but also values like sustainability, parsimony, frugal innovation. We're talking about making a whole lot of stuff if we talk about robotics. You know, is that the way we want to head? You know, we have to ask these questions about sustainability, knowing where technology can take us. So these are really important values, I think, to bring into the debate. But I just wanted to finish by thinking about how we carry out this debate. So as I said, I've worked quite a lot in engineering ethics and philosophy of engineering, and to me, these are really practical spheres of activity. It's not about a priori philosophical reasoning. Thought experiments are really useful and really interesting, but actually it's about situations, highly contextual situations, where technology has an impact on the way we live our lives, the choices we make, and we respond to that technology in a really practical way that we can't always predict. So I think it's really interesting that a lot of robotics researchers are driving the ethical discussion, which means that it's really kind of linked to the way the technology is developing and really kind of realistic about the technology, which I think is good. But I think it also needs to link much more to social sciences and how people respond to the technologies they develop, and has to be in real touch with what's happening now and how people's views are changing as technologies change around them. So it has to be a very pragmatic, sort of naturalistic, not a priori form of ethical reasoning, not purely thinking about that science fiction thought experiment, but thinking about what's happening now, how our lives are changing around these kind of autonomous learning technologies, and if we're happy with the direction it's taking us.